Welcome to Judge My Round with Tom Brennan. Carolyn, I've received your video submission and I haven't watched it yet. We're going to get started here and give you my first impressions as if I were judging the class, and then we'll go back and break it down a little bit after that. So let's get going. I'm going to pause right off the bat. I don't normally do this, but before we get started, I can tell from the background that this is a video from the New England Equitation Championships. And I have judged in that venue. I've exhibited at that venue. I've been there a couple of times. And I just want to say this is a very difficult venue to show horses in and to do a good job being smooth, being competitive, being competent. So I'm excited to see what this video is. But right off the bat, when I'm judging in this venue, I'm a little forgiving of things like pace changes, and rideability, because it is a deceptively difficult ring to ride in. First impressions, beautifully turned out horse. Not something that would go into judging, but it is nice to see a horse come in with just a snaffle rein, see if he can be competitive. That's a perfect example of this ring. That jump didn't come exactly out of stride the way you wanted, but again, for first jump in this ring, a little aggressive. Pretty good hind rub there at jump 2. Rider has nice balance, nice poise. I like what I would call the adaptive seat. She's able to adjust her seat accordingly for this ring and the questions that are being asked. What a great horse. I'm really liking this round so far. I always think the course designers at this event do such a good job, because this is difficult to set a nice course in. That was very well done. Maybe losing a little body control towards the end of the course here, but all really forward and confident. There's no sound on the video, but we can see everyone clapping, and the video ends there. I think that'd be very competitive. That looks like the adult height. I'm going to say in the range of, depending on what else happened that day, the rest of the class, I'm somewhere in the 85 to 87 range with that round. There were a few little things that came up. The first jump was just a little bit cautious, and then at fence 2 we had a pretty good hind rub because we were sending him up that first line at a gallop. But again, very competitive round. I could see that winning any class at the New England Championships. So now that we've had a chance to watch your round once straight through, we're going to go ahead and break it down and have a closer look at some of the things I thought you did really well that earned you bonus points, and some things that I think you could do a little bit better for the future. So Carolyn, you come into the venue, and right from the get-go, when a horse picks up an opening canter, I'm looking for a few things, and you're checking pretty much all the boxes. You have a nice balanced position, very textbook, all the things we're looking for: straight line elbow to bit, hip over heel, eyes up and ahead, deep center of gravity, nice weight down in your legs. The horse is turned out impeccably. You're turned out impeccably. It's such a relief to see an equitation rider with properly fitted show coat, not something that's too short or too tight. Now, one thing I will harp on a little bit that is totally a preference issue. This would never determine the outcome of a class for me when I'm judging. But personal preference, I am not a fan of the breeches that are made by this maker with the black emblem in the middle of the left thigh, for a few reasons. First, it almost looks like someone got boot polish on their pants by accident, but now that these are a very common pair of breeches that we see all the time when we're judging, we know that they're not dirty. That's just the emblem from the maker. But I do think it draws a line of sight to the rider's thigh that, should they lose leg control, it really highlights. You don't suffer from this, but some riders do, and it's just not my preference. Now, I understand these bridges are very comfortable and people like to have them, but I also believe that they maybe are making a version of it without the black mark. I'm not totally sure on that, but if they did, I would love to just see a nice, normal pair of breeches on the rider at this point. Now you pick up a really good, strong gallop that I'm a huge fan of. It really sets the tone for the whole course. We now have the view of the right side of the rider, and one last equipment point I'll make is you have a crop that for the most part stays put. Once in a while it varies in position. Your horse looks just like a perfect animal for this job. If you don't need the crop, I'm not sure it does you any favors to have one more thing to hold on to. And we'll touch back on that in a moment when we see why. Now, the first jump, you do have to balance a little bit right here and change your pace just barely. I would attribute that to the ring more than anything. It's a tough ring to ride in, and you handled it beautifully. But it's something to keep in mind. Now, here from 2 to 3, it's a strong gallop up this first line. We're going to go back and look at that again and talk about jump 2. Coming off the a little bit conservative distance at jump 1, you're probably aware from walking the course that this 7 marches up home, the first line from 2 to 3. And I just think you start legging him pretty hard and early, and he gets down to the ground a little too soon. It's still the right thing to do. In a different part of the course or a different instance, I might fault you harder for it. But knowing this venue, knowing this ring, and just how perfect this horse seems to be and the great ride he's getting, I wouldn't kill you for it. I think we've really evolved in our judging a lot when it comes to equitation rubs and rails. And for me, it's something I would notice for sure, but I am not at a place where I'm really penalizing you for it. Obviously, if someone else can do the same effective job without the performance hindrance of the big rub, then that would be worth taking into account. Now, really, that pace change from 2 to 3 is the extent of the problems you seem to run into on course, or at least the significant problems. You do a great job here across the middle. This is almost a breather moment from the course designer. And then I really think you correct the problem you had to 2 as you approach this in and out. That's a nice place to stride. I'm looking for the rider's consistency of position, and I think you demonstrated it well. Here, staying on the exact same expression and gallop that you had from the beginning. Now, one thing that shows up here as you do the bending line across the middle, which was ridden very well, but it exploits the hindrance of that crop a little, I think. If we watch the bite of your reins, which right now is on the right side of his neck by that crop, makes a pretty good, strong, round effort over the jump, and the bite gets flipped over the handle of your crop, or at least that's what it looks like from here, and it just sits over your left hand for the duration of the line. Now, it doesn't seem to distract you, and your performance is excellent, and it wouldn't be something that, again, I would take off from. But anytime we can minimize those variables, we maximize your chance for smooth, successful riding. I'm going to pause one more time because the end of this course comes up quickly. And in the last line, you actually remind me as a judge of the problem you had in the first line. The horse gets just a touch behind your leg off that right lead. You have to kick an extra time or two, and you end up losing a little bit of finesse. We lose a little bit of that poise that we've shown so far. Your elbows get moving, you kind of drop to an aggressive seat, and have to kick your horse 2 or 3 times to get up that last line. Now, you're strong, and he's a great horse, so I still have you being very competitive, and I would still let you win the class if need be. But we'd like to make that look more effortless, especially at the end of the course, in order to be super competitive at a national level. So Carolyn, now that I've had a chance to read through your email and get to know a little more information about you, congratulations on the win in that class that you submitted. You also had an opportunity to send in 3 questions with your submission. The first one is pretty broad. You ask, what can you do to be more competitive on a national level? You have some big goals coming up this fall. For me, there are a few areas I'd like to see you focus on. The first is just smoothing out the overall round. To me, a pace of an equitation round is totally smooth from beginning to end, even during adjustment. So for a forward line or a long line, the rider is making that horse's adjustment early so we don't see a big change between the fences. And vice versa for a short collected line, we want to see that organization to accommodate the shorter distance happen over a longer period of time earlier so that it's less visible. Secondly, about your position, I'm more partial to the lighter forward half seat that you show most of the time when you're on course. Once in a while you do drop down into an adjusted seat or a modified 3-point, and you use that effectively and correctively, but I think the smoothest rounds are done out of a consistent light half seat, and I think that's what we're all going to be looking for this fall at National Medal Finals. Now your second question has to do with the hard hind rub your horse had at fence 2. Inadvertently, I've already addressed that in the second section of this video, but just to recap, I do think it was partially rider created because you were thinking about calling on him to get up that forward bending 7 early in the class. I just wouldn't kill you for it or really penalize you for it because I think it's a very difficult venue, and mostly you were super smooth and super competitive. Your third question, finally, is also pretty broad. It asks, what am I looking for in general from a round in an equitation finals on a national level? And I love that question. I think we're looking for good riders and good riding. We want classical style, correct style, a horse who's performing, but we don't take away from the specific individuality of any one rider. You always want to invite someone's natural talent to come out, even if that isn't perfectly classical. In terms of the horse, I'm looking for one that's galloping from behind, pushing with both hind legs. He should be happy. He should look like he enjoys it. The horse should be light off the inside aids and really relaxed as he goes through the course. I'd like the rider to have good pace, and I really like the rider to release the horse's mouth, to go with the motion of the jump. The horse should be so rideable and the pace so smooth that you almost don't even see any of the adjustments. They're invisible. When good equitation is really working, it looks effortless and simple, even though we all know that it isn't. And finally, I'm looking for an athlete in the horse as well, not just a robotic machine that is stepping flatly over the jumps. I like that your gray horse in this video puts a little effort into the oxers and gets a little round and forces you to show that you know how to ride a proper jump rather than just a muted effort that gets you from one side to the other. Carolyn, thank you for your video submission. I hope you've enjoyed this process, and best of luck this fall at your horse shows. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to judge your round.